Here in Leinster House last night we had a debate on the establishment of a single Shannon authority. My concern is that it will take years to implement this. And it's not just my view. The former Minister for the OPW, Sean Canny, articulated that last night, as has the former Minister, Boxer Morden. And we feel that priority needs to be given to carrying out maintenance on the River Shannon. And that's the view of 3 independent ministers, the first 3 ministers to actually see actual maintenance work carried out on the River Shannon, the first time since the foundation of the state. And we believe that's what needs to be prioritised at this point in time. This is what I said last night.
First of all, can I say that I welcome and fully support the objective behind this particular bill. But having worked with Minister Sean Canny and Minister Boxer Morden with regard to the Shannon Flood Risk State Coordination Working Group, as some of the state agencies under that group came under my responsibility when I was Minister, I know firsthand the challenges that are there, and I know exactly what the Minister is elaborating and pointing out in his contribution. Just to point out that when I was Minister, we tried to amalgamate both Bordnamona and Coillte together, and that had to be abandoned because of the legal complexities in bringing 2 pretty young state agencies together. I can say that if a new agency is to be established, it will take at least 5 years to produce a piece of legislation which will then be challenged the whole way to Europe. And I can safely say that it will be a decade from now at the earliest before it becomes operational. And we need to be honest with people in relation to that. And the reality is we don't have 10 years. We need to see action now to address summer flooding and the scale of winter flooding which families in my community are experiencing as we speak. But I do accept the core argument in relation to this bill, and that is that we do need a single accountable authority that has the legal authority, firstly to manage the water levels on the lakes and at our weirs, secondly to remove the pinch points south of Athlone, which will ultimately lead within the next 5 years to the removal of Meelick Weir, thirdly to remove the pinch points north of Lough Ree, and fourthly to carry out an ongoing maintenance programme on the Shannon and its tributaries. I believe that legal responsibility should be given to the OPW to achieve those 4 objectives and to provide it with legal responsibility to address flooding in general, and that this should happen now. And I think that is the one step that needs to be taken, because I agree with the core argument behind this bill, that there is a lack of coordination there. And I'll give you an example. Minister, in your reply to the House here on the 13th of October, you stated the ESB has responsibility for managing water levels in Lough Ree, Lough Allen and Lough Derg. The levels between the lakes are managed by Waterways Ireland for navigational purposes. Both organisations are members of this coordination group and communicate on a daily basis to ensure a coordinated approach in managing water levels. I'm going to take you, Minister, to the 3rd of July last. On the 3rd of July last, Waterways Ireland had half of its sluice gates, of its 30 sluice gates at Meelick open. The protocol stipulated that on that day it should open all of the gates as the water levels were continuing to rise. Between the 3rd of July and the 7th of July, just 5 of the 15 gates were opened. But on that day, on the 3rd of July, as Waterways Ireland opened the gates at Meelick to reduce the rising waters, at far too slow a rate, I must add, the ESB decided to open 2 additional sluice gates in Athlone, bringing it to 6 gates opening in Athlone, and left all 6 gates open for the next 5 days until farmers north of Meelick were flooded out of it. So for 5 days, Minister, there was no coordination between the ESB in Athlone and Waterways Ireland in Meelick, and in between, the people within the Shannon Callows were flooded, and that was the fundamental problem that led to the flooding that took place last July and last summer. That is because of a lack of coordination. I've been consistently told here from meetings that I had with the ESB down through the years that we couldn't address the water levels on Lough Ree and Lough Allen and Lough Derg, all of which need to be decreased to provide additional capacity. Yet when Brian Hayes was in your seat, Minister, the operational level of Lough Ree was reduced by a full metre on a pilot basis. When Minister Morden was in your seat, Minister, we got Lough Allen reduced by 0.7 of a metre. So it can be done, and it has been done, despite what the ESB has said in the past. And it is clear that there is a lack of coordination there. Again, in a response, Minister, that you provided to me on the 1st of October of this year, a decision was taken last year to allocate €7 million to carry out a programme of maintenance between Athlone and Mealig, to take out the pinch points in that. And that money has been secured by the OPW, and the OPW handed over €500,000 to the Department of Culture, Heritage and the Gaeltacht to allow Waterways Ireland to carry out the various advance implementation that needs to be done in advance of works starting. To date, that hasn't happened. Again, we see a situation that a decision was taken 12 months ago. The funding was provided to Waterways Ireland by the OPW, and yet we're not seeing action until sometime next year. And that's why I believe that what we need is a short piece of legislation to be brought in here, give the OPW legal responsibility for this, hold them accountable for them, and let them drive the change that clearly isn't happening at the moment, and as I have identified.
Here my colleague Sean Canny outlined some of the challenges we have in actually trying to get work carried out on the River Shannon.
I had a review back at the estimates last year and at the Office of Public Works, and they had targeted to start 6 flood relief schemes in this country last year. They started 2. And that was nothing to do with the Shannon Group or legislation. It was the fact that we have, whether we like it or not, a huge barrier in terms of consents we need, of environmental issues. You see down in Cork, where back in 2016 I launched that scheme. We see 3 weeks ago it's flooded and the scheme hasn't moved on because you have people who say it's not the right thing to do, they want to do something else. It has swung around the place for the last 5 years. The business people in Cork are suffering again this year. Why? So we've got to be honest when we talk about bringing in legislation. People might believe, and I've told this to people on the ground, I have said that we should concentrate our efforts on getting work done rather than on legislation. And I will tell you that I looked at bringing in a single authority when I was Minister, and I left it because I could have been swamped in a legal mire for 5 years trying to get something done, and everybody would take their eye off the ball and forget about what we're here about. We want to reduce the flooding, we want to reduce the levels, reduce the pinpoints, do the clearing, and we get on with it. What we need to do is that we need to recognise that work is being done. We have to be honest, work is being done. Sometimes the work that is being done right now in relation to the pinch points, which I believe is going to be the basis of everything, is we get the pinch points sorted out. And I'd say, Minister, if you focus on that for the next 12 months or 9 months and get that going, we will be achieving something that will help people. We will help the people in the Callows. We will help the people whose houses are flooding. We will also reduce the levels to great capacity. I must say the National Parks and Wildlife were also very, very involved and led by example. And I know in December of 2016, for the first time in a lot of years, we saw machines going out onto the Shannon. Office of Public Works working with the Waterways Ireland to clear some do some channel clearing, and that was in December 2016. That work has continued. Works programmes have been prepared. But the only thing I would say to you, Minister, is the one thing you're lacking, and not your fault, the one thing you're missing and you don't have, is that punch in terms of that, I suppose, that bit of strength of legislation for you to direct them quicker to get work done.